Welcome to the show, people. This is Skutch Radio, and this is Do Something Great Today podcast. And, this is something that I wanted to do for a long time. I wanted to have the ability to share a platform and be able to bring on and interview people that are impactful, that are unique, and they're doing different things for the world, for their children, for the community. And, I think this platform is really going to be something special. And before I move forward with the show, I just would like you guys to first subscribe on YouTube at itsmeskutch. Make sure you're following all my accounts on Instagram, on TikTok. You can find Skutch Radio on Instagram. You can follow JD Skutch on Instagram and TikTok, and It's Me Skutch. All right, and we're going to dive deep real quick into how Skutch was created and the whole vision behind Skutch.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. We have these logos here, and you've done a great job with this. And how did Skutch come about? Like, what was the meaning of it? We all know what Skutch means, but what does that mean to you? And tell me a little bit more about how that got created.
Yeah, basically, this is the next step of the whole Skutch brand, and it's bringing it now to a platform where I'm going to bring guests out there, and they're going to show their version of Skutch. And now I'm going to dive deep into it. So Skutch is a character that I created that I looked at as almost like an alter ego of me, someone that has been through it, someone that made the mistakes, someone that needed people in their corner, mentors, coaches, teachers, friends, parents. And, needing that in my life, fast forwarding to now at 36 years old, being a parent, being a leader over at the gym. I train a lot of young kids. And when I realized that this was a missing piece in a lot of people's life, I knew that this was the next step on not just physically training people, but tapping into that mentality, tapping into the mindset, tapping into a vision that, parents don't have all the answers, and none of us do. But if we put things together and we give them those answers, and we put together messages and stories and posts, and we have this channel to share those opportunities to, raise your kids the right way. And the right way might be different for everybody, but if you're being able to pick and choose what you think is best for your child, I think you're going to be able to successfully raise your child, right? So the whole Skutch mentality was having that accountability factor in your life. Skutch, the pest. So the Italians out there might know what it is, Skutch. Their parents might have called it, their grandparents might have used the word. And coming across trying to find a catchy word, but not only a catchy word, but a catchy word that meant what the brand really stands for. It's that person that's going to be a pest in a positive way, motivating you, pushing you, being that person that's going to say, hey, listen, get up and do it.
Holding you accountable.
Holding you accountable every day.
Yeah.
It's the discipline, it's the motivation, it's a character that kids can relate to, even through their parents. This message is for parents. This message is for parents to impact the youth. And using a character like Skutch, I think it'll catch the kids' attention. So when the parents are using it as, hey, Skutch would do this or Skutch would do that, it might be easier to get kids to exercise. It might get kids to want to read more, want to eat healthy, want to go out and, hang out with some friends, or go out of your way and hang out with someone you might not actually have hung out with. So it's like, pick someone's day up, and that's where the whole Do Something Great Today came about, was just go out and do something great. Imagine if everybody went out and did great things every single day. How amazing would that be if you just went out and you just wanted to just one thing a day. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be this drastic thing. But if you literally went out and did one thing every day, something great every single day, the community, the kids, I think we'd have a great society. And I think that's the end goal of what you're doing. And the reason why I brought you on this podcast was we are local people. We're dads. We want to lead our kids. We want to see success for our kids, because you don't want them making the same mistakes we did. And if we could fast track them through a lot of those things and kind of, bounce it around and give them the things that we didn't do as kids, and now that, we wish we did, we didn't do them as kids. We didn't have those answers. But things that now that we're doing and we're like, oh man, I wish we did that. That's not something that you wish or you have resent for.
Of course.
Guess what? Now it's the opportunity to lead people that need it the most. Your kids, I know you coach, I see it all over Instagram. The things that you're doing are amazing. Coming from and, taking that next step. And that's some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, is going to just dive deep into why you went from where you were in your life and now as a parent and as, a leader in what you see as your family and I guess the kids that you're coaching and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What really brought us to that is the big thing that we're going to be able to share. So, guys, this podcast is going to be all about bringing unique, impactful individuals to one platform to be able to share their unique stories, and this is going to be the opportunity to do it. So, welcome to the show. This is your time to introduce yourself.
Thanks,
and
brother.
let us know who you are and what you're all about.
Thanks, JD. There's a lot to unpack there. I think one of the really cool things about this is that we talked about an alter ego and how Skutch turned into an alter ego,
Yeah.
and I absolutely love that. I look at it as I created an alter ego for myself, and I also wanted to do it for my kids too. So when you mentioned that hit home for
Yep.
me, because I was like, this is exactly what I try to do with my kids. I actually took it where we created a board of directors in our kids' minds, right? So what we did was I pictured my kid sitting at the head of a table, right? And then you have the board of directors sitting on the side of it.
Okay,
and
I like that.
and they're all different personalities of my children. And so I broke it down to 4 different categories: leader, sports and fitness, student, and friend or sibling, friend/sibling.
Got it.
And I said, what would the ultimate friend look like to you? What kind of personality traits would that friend have? Right? What kind of personality traits would you want in sports or fitness? Right? Like always getting up when you get knocked down. Right? Ferociousness, speed, grit.
That's
Right?
great.
And then you have like leader, like doing the right thing, integrity. Like what are the ultimate things? So then when you get drawn upon, when you have that situation, you can pull from your alter ego, right? Almost what you mentioned with Skutch.
Exactly.
It's like when you're doubting yourself or when you don't want to get up and you don't want to do that extra rep.
Yep.
Like Skutch is there to be like,
Exactly. You're not always going to want to do it.
Get
We're
up
human.
and do it, right?
Exactly.
So that resonated a lot with me. Another thing that you mentioned that was really good about do something great today,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I love the whole mantra of that, and you've been doing that for a while now.
Yep.
And so every night at dinner, we have family dinner, and I call it VCR, right? I started this with people at work, and I eventually took it down to with my children. And so what we do is we call it VCR. It's called Victory Challenge Random. And so every day we sit at the table, and all 4 of us, my wife included, all of us, I say, give me a victory today, give me one challenge, and give me something random.
Okay.
Right? And so the victory could be, I met a new friend today.
Yeah.
And I'd never played with this person before, and now we became friends. A challenge could be I'd stand up in front of the class and read, or I had to do a math problem that I wasn't sure about, right?
Got
That
it.
was a challenge for me. And then we get to speak about that challenge and how that makes you feel. And then the random could be like, I didn't like my lunch today, or random could be I went across the monkey bar. It's like something random, anything to do. So like that, do something great today. It transpires into a lot of different things.
Absolutely, and I love that because no matter what your system is and no matter what you're doing for your family or for what you're trying to accomplish, having a set system and how you're doing it and making it fun. If it's enjoyable, if it's ways that you're interacting with your kids, they don't even realize it. What you're doing at home and what you're doing as a regular routine turns into normal life.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of us think that the things that we're doing now, the things that we believe in, that these are like chores, or this is like a even in the nutritional sense, a diet, or it's just normal eating, or it's normal living. It's just normal principles of life. And it's like the Skutch movement and this podcast, I live life by principles. I live life by, setting a standard. People that are in my kids' life, like you were saying, is I want people in my life that are going to be impactful for my children. If you are not someone that I see as a role model or a leader in my life or my child's life, I'm pulling the plug. I've done it. I've already pulled my kids out of something that I didn't believe in. I didn't think the people that were running the program, I'm not going to mention anything because I don't want to bring it to that. But
Of course.
I just, I see it as like, if you're not going to be positive, and you can't be around my kids. It's my job to make sure that I'm putting them in the right positions for success and seeing a future for themselves. So if I'm not navigating them through it, then I feel like I'm failing them.
Yeah.
In a sense, I'm failing them. I'm not giving them the right preparation and not setting them up the right way for success. So,
it's your role as a leader. It's your role as a
Absolutely.
leader, as a man and leader of the family. You're someone that you work with your wife on, try to orchestrate and cultivate an environment for them where they can succeed. Like that's normal. I think a lot of parents want that and they look for that, but I think some of them can't be as active as they would like. And I think you and I, when we see each other, we're like, all right, here's someone who can actually is cultivating an environment for their family to succeed. And I think we need more and more families to actually take an active role in that.
Absolutely. And now, just to keep it a little bit, going forward is, all this stuff, all this mentality that we're talking about, that's pretty much now. That's what we're living right now, right? So dive deep a little bit into what brought you're writing a book, you're going into schools, you're public speaking. I mean, a lot of these values of life, right, they come from your upbringing, right? Father being a former Marine, mother being a retired teacher. There has to be some values, right, that came from the leadership value in military, and then the leadership in a classroom, how you're delivering the messages and the things that you believe and the things that you live by. How are you able to now translate that into your kids and now into your book that you're and the public speaking, should I say?
Yeah, no, thank you. It's I was raised in a different kind of household than a lot of kids. I think I was raised in a house that was very firm, very tough, very loving. We were raised in a house that reputation meant a lot, your word meant a lot, responsibility meant a lot, and it was that kind of values that I wanted to bestow on my kids when they got of age. So I've always knew that's how I was raised, and I wanted to pass down those values. And so when I was during COVID, my kids were 4 and 1, and I really wanted to find lessons for them. And as you know, like being a father, you read your books to your kids every night.
Yeah, and I love that. Not to cut you, but like I love that the most about you, because that's what really attracted me to you was seeing the different things that you would put your kids through on Instagram and seeing the videos and just letting them do uncomfortable things. So that's probably the most impactful thing I see, because when I see stuff like that, it motivates me to do more. I'm like, am I doing enough with my children? Am I pushing I know I'm trying to be the leader and I'm doing the right steps for stuff, but it's like you start to, and what this is doing too is you start to be able to pull from people doing great things.
Absolutely.
And doing the things that you see as value to your own family. It's like to see you being to leading them as well. Like you're doing it with them. You're not just telling them what to do. I mean, you're a father that's being the example. You are the example. So it's like they're not even thinking of any other type of standard. It's like, Dad does it, I want to do it. Like it's not even that they think it's a hard thing. They see you doing it. They want to see it. They want to achieve it. And it's like, I think that's like a huge value and a huge, a testament to who you are as a person, a father and a leader. And I think that's great.
JD, thank you for that. That's humbling to hear, because as a dad, we're all growing and we don't have all the answers, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
So what I look at is what I know, right?
Yep.
And getting that from my parents, this is what I want to do and take it to the next level if I ever could, right?
Yep.
And so I know that my wife and I had this idea that we want to live by example, right? And I think part of it is that I didn't want to picture myself being the one just preach from some ivory tower about how I was in high school and how I was when I was younger. And I used to do this and I used to do all this stuff, and like, you don't know. Which you see a lot of
everywhere.
Which is everywhere, right?
Yep.
I figured the only way my kids are going to learn is if they see me doing it and doing it all the time. Discipline, not just like when I feel like it. Yep. Like I have to be doing it all the time. And granted, I'm not perfect. Like there are days where like I may not get a good workout in, but I'm getting something in every day.
Absolutely.
And so one of those things, it's like I want to put them through this, so when they see it, they know it's difficult for them now. They know what they're doing is unusual now because they don't see other kids doing the same things.
Absolutely.
Like for instance, I'll give you for instance. So my kids do 25 push-ups, 25 squats, 25 sit-ups every morning.
Absolutely, that's great. I love it.
And they started out with 5, and as they got stronger and became easier, I started bumping it up a little bit.
That's great.
Now you can imagine these kids are like, Dad, again, push-ups again, right? Squats again, and I'm like, it's non-negotiable. I'm like, we're doing this every single day, and Dad's doing it with you, right? Like I do 200 push-ups every day. Like it's like I'm doing it with you. Like I'm doing the squats with you. We're all doing it together, right? My wife does it too. So they'll fight me on that, But then eventually they're like, all right, well, maybe this isn't so bad. It only takes 2 minutes to do all this. It only takes 3 minutes to do all this.
Setting
right?
mini goals that eventually turn into this big goal that they're achieving is great. I love it.
And I think one of the cool things about it is that when my daughter was in gym class, this happened like a couple months ago, and the gym class made everyone do 5 push-ups. And she was like, this is a joke, 5 push-ups, right? And so she bangs them out, and she's like, Dad, she's like, I ended up doing like 25. And she's like, it was like some of these kids couldn't even do 3 push-ups. They couldn't even do 1 push-up. And I'm like, don't you see how different you feel now?
Absolutely.
Don't you feel strong?
Imagine when there was standards.
And she's like, wow. She's like, I can't believe like what you make me do.
Yep.
Is that I'm like seeing the benefit for you.
Yep.
Because but when you do it at home,
yep.
it's very hard to see that tangible difference. And like, why are you making
100%.
me do this? Why are
yep.
you making me like do this all the time?
Yep.
Right. And then when they see
yep.
that,
when they put to the test,
oh my God,
yep,
when they get that positive affirmation
yep.
back. All of a sudden it motivates them to do more.
Absolutely.
Like my 5-year-old, when he was 3, he was doing push-ups as his show and tell.
I love it.
He banged out like 10 to 12 push-ups, and the positive response from his teachers and the students, he came back. He was so proud. This 3-year-old was just so proud of himself. And he's like, I want to do more. I want to do more.
When you accomplish things and you start seeing those mini milestones when they're hitting them, don't set your kids up for failure. Don't set yourself or anyone that's going to be following anything that you're going to be leading. Set something up that's achievable right off the bat. Let them feel the win. When they feel that win, it's like, oh man, that's a good feeling, right? Now you're setting a little bit of a harder goal that might be a little more challenging. It's like, no, but I could do this.
Yeah.
Now you start believing in yourself. The more that you're believing in yourself and the more that you can, succeed and actually see like, all right, well, the reward from pushing yourself could be like 5 push-ups. And it's like, oh, not so bad. But it felt good because when I walked into class, these kids couldn't do any push-ups.
Right.
So now even just to do 5 push-ups, now it's like, I think I could do more.
Right.
And then when they start to see that, hey, if I believe in myself, these little goals are going to now turn into these big goals.
And it translates to other things, right? It translates to everything else.
And everything else in life. You touched on a good point of something. I think it's a huge topic of what I like to not necessarily stand for, but kind of like I want to break the mold in parents, right? It's like you have so many parents that want so much out of their kids, right? They're expecting so much out of their kids.
Oh, yeah.
But they can't even meet those own standards of what they're holding on their kids. It's like you want your kid to be this superstar and you hold yourself accountable for nothing, And again, there might be outliers of things, and it's not casting any judgment on people, but when you look at how easy it is to fall off and not want more and want to do more, it's like it's a pretty easy thing just to skate through life and just go through life where it's like I'll just wake up every day. Hey, I'm a parent. I give them clothes to wear. I give them food to eat. I provide them rides if they got to go to school and practice and all that kind of stuff. Like that's such the bare minimum, and we're at a point in life where there's so many resources to know that we could do so much better for our children on every level. That if you're not taking the time to do this for your kids, I feel not a little bit of sense of I feel bad for your kids because our kids don't have those answers. Going back to the beginning of this, they don't have the answers. We are their answers. So the more that we correct our mistakes and we find the answers to things that we don't know, we're setting our kids up. So
it's funny you say that because I feel like when you say about the standards that parents hold their kids at, but they don't do it themselves.
Absolutely.
A lot of people will say to me, a lot of dads specifically will say, I don't have the time, right?
Yeah.
And they self-sacrifice themselves, everything for their children, and they think that is the way to be the best parent.
Yeah, for sure.
And I had an epiphany about 5-6 years ago where being selfless and being that dad who would do anything for their children, of course. But then I thought to myself, all right, what version of me am I giving them? I'm giving them a 40% version of who I could be.
Absolutely.
But if I take an hour every day to work my body, to work my mind, to read different books, to self-educate, and to keep getting better and becoming a better version of Stephen Clifford, then all of a sudden the version I'm giving them is now 80%, 90% of what of the dad I could be.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so like by being selfish for an hour, or finding the time either early in the morning or late at night, instead of doom scrolling on my phone, I'm reading.
Yep.
Or I'm getting a workout in.
Yep.
All of a sudden now I'm a better version of who I am.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I don't have time for this, I'm self-sacrificing myself. That's not really honorable to me.
Absolutely.
Like,
And you
what
can leave
what
out
honor
the-
is to me is bettering yourself so you have a better version to show your children.
Absolutely. And you can leave out the selfish part, because I think taking care of your own self and putting that as a priority in your life, you can leave, and I know
that's
how
how
you
people,
mean it.
That's how people view it.
No, of
like,
course.
I'm being selfish, I'm working out, like those ultimate
But
sacrifices.
people that live the
parents.
lives that we live and the things that we want to see our kids do, that's leadership right there. That's putting time for
Yeah.
yourself. If you're not your strongest version physically and mentally, you can't give your
Right.
kids the best version. So it's, I'm not saying go to the gym and miss something for your kids.
Sure.
Maybe you want to put that on there. But waking up every day, knowing that your day needs to start with taking care of your
Yeah.
body first, because, it's almost like being on an airplane, right? They tell you to put, your
Right.
mask on first before helping anybody else. You can't help anybody if you're not able,
Right.
if you're not capable of doing, what is necessary. How could you, you're not going to be a help, you're not going to be there for it.
If dad is weak and dad's not sharp and
Exactly.
dad is falling on the
Yep.
sword and every single time, you're not being the best dad you could be.
Absolutely.
And like
Yep.
you're denying that inside
Yep.
of you. And listen, I'm not the perfect dad. You're not the perfect dad, but like I realize that in order to get better, I need to constantly evolve.
Yeah. And all right, so I want to that takes us to our next part, because everything that we're talking about is pretty much the standard and is the life that we're living now. But let me know, this is the book. This is his first book written, and what is your favorite part of the book? Give me a little bit of that real quick. Give me your favorite part of the book and what you love to share.
Yeah, so the books are called Forgotten Wisdom books, and they're called Lessons from a Former Marine and a Retired Teacher. And I wanted to honor my parents, the lessons that they gave me. And so this first book here is called Nothing Changes If Nothing Changes. And it's a book about self-accountability and ownership. And during the story, both my son and my daughter go through their different struggles, and they both try to almost avoid the problem. And they talked about accountability. And so one of my favorite parts of this book is when my daughter comes back from soccer practice and she says how she doesn't want to go. And Grandpa says to her, well, why don't you want to go to the game, the practice? Doesn't seem like a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, because the ball keeps getting taken away from me. And then Grandpa says, okay, well, are you practicing? And my daughter says, not really. Well, then I'm sorry to tell you something. Nothing's going to change. The ball's always going to be taken away from you.
Sometimes you need to hear it.
That feeling in your body of not wanting to go into practice is never going to change unless you change. You have to be the one to change in order to get a different outcome. And so there's this page in this book that it has her looking in the mirror, and it says, "Am I doing everything to get better? Am I all in? Am I trying my absolute hardest? Do I even really like soccer? Like, if you don't like soccer, then that's great, and let's do something else that you like. But if you really like it, well, then let's figure out a way to succeed." And by keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's more of a victim blaming. Like, stop pointing the finger as to why the ball is getting taken away from you. Stop pointing the finger at everything else. Point the finger at yourself first. Yeah. Figure out what needs to happen. I think today's society, a lot of people are so quick to blame other people for their problems.
100%.
And kids learn that from their parents. So the kids are the first ones to be like,
Yep.
well, someone, Johnny did this, so that's why I did that. No,
Yep.
no, you can control your emotions.
Yep.
You can control the outcomes.
Yep.
How about you look at what you could have done better
Exactly.
first? So if you want to get better at soccer, what are you doing about it?
Of course.
Right? And so I think that's the message I want to get through, that is more about ownership of your outcomes.
Absolutely. I love that, because not only is it a great message, but for the fact that you're diving into your kids' lives and finding out those little things that, they might be a little minor thing to adult or to the outside of it, but if that's something that your kid's struggling in, and if it's constantly something that they'll probably constantly struggle with the rest of their life. They'll translate that from a small thing of soccer into the workplace. And it's like, by learning how to cope with that and attack it, because you're going to always be uncomfortable in life. You're always going to come across things in life. Nothing is going to be easy. You're going to come across good relationships, bad relationships. And that's a lot of things I talk to my children about is, there's a lot of uncontrollable things in life, and, allowing those things to alter your mood or your character or your integrity is something that, you have to learn right away that that's not all be all. It's something that's in the moment, you know, and by being able to address it, whether it's a problem, whether it's a struggle, if you're addressing those and attacking it right away, you know, the next time a situation comes up, they're already their mindset's already switching over and learning how to cope with that situation. It's like that one little simple message from you goes a long way, and it's great.
One of the cool things I did in this book, because I didn't want to, because these lessons are for all ages. I mean, think about it. Nothing changes if nothing changes. You could that could be applied to any adult.
Of course.
Like I had a dad come up to me and goes, "I read the book to my kid. I went to the gym." He's like, "I went to the gym that day," right? And so one of the things that I put in the book here is I put a little badge page here. And so I'd say, like, for the parents, share an instance in your life where you decided to make a change. You weren't happy with something, so you were able to make a change. So that way the parents can talk about, almost brag about themselves, like, you know what? Your mommy didn't like this, daddy didn't like this about themselves.
I love that.
And so I made a change, right? So that way share a story. And then you get to go to your child and say, what do you want to change? Is there something in your life that you want to change?
Yep.
Well, how about we set a goal together and figure it out? And then we have a patch in the back. So this patch can be earned from your parents by doing that.
That's great.
And then your kids can put it in their backpack, they put it in their
that.
room.
I love that.
And now it's a symbol of the goal that they set and they complete
and they achieved it. I love it. So that's like something to bring up the Skutch Fit Academy. It's something that I created, and it's pretty much the same thing. So as I'm bringing these young kids in to the Skutch Fit Academy, and it's all starting off with a pledge. So that pledge is that they're going to pledge to achieve something, no matter what it might be. Again, small goals, building up to bigger goals, achieving more and more and more, and becoming great along the way. So it's like physical gains, mental gains, you know, education, whether it's, you know, faith. I mean, there's all different components that I like to put in there, and I want to be able to teach kids that, like you said, change. You know, everything's always gonna change. Nothing's all be all right then and there. When you're setting these little things up, it's like set the foundation, find out who you truly are, what you want to achieve, what you're doing, you know, and then as you're going, have that leadership to, like, all right, now we need to make adjustments, whether it's in life, whether it's in a sport, whether it's in school. You know, you might have different struggles, you might excel in different areas. So it's like setting these principles and setting a standard for these kids to have, you know, is gonna really set them up for a good future, you know, in every aspect of life.
Absolutely.
So,
I think it's imperative to this. And, you know, a lot of these books are somewhat similar. So this second one here, it's called Stop Existing and Start Living. And this book more is about getting off screens and getting outside. One of the best parts about this, and it's really funny because I made the men in the book like oversized superheroes. So like Grandpa is still, my dad's still pretty jacked for his age. But I made him super jacked here. I made some of my friends were busting me and like, oh, you made the dad so jacked. And I was like, well, yeah. I was like, because my kids look at me like a superhero.
No matter what.
Like there's too many stories where men today are depicted as soft and lazy and dumb leaders of the family. And that's not who I am in the family. That's not who many men are in their families.
That's another podcast we could get into another time. Yeah, we'll talk about that another day.
So I wanted to make sure that the dads are represented properly here. And so one of the best parts, my favorite page about this book is this one right here. So dad and grandpa are working out in the gym, and they come back out, and they see the kids zombied out on screens. They see him on a tablet, and they're like, not today. Yep. We're going outside.
Too much of what we're seeing now.
And so this book is about getting outside, being the main character of your own movie. No. Like too many kids are watching other kids live their lives, and I want them to know, like, you can be your own main character.
Of course.
Right? And you go outside, start your own adventure.
Yeah. Inspire yourself, right? Inspire yourself to
do daring
to
things.
be who you want to be, to do what you want to do, to live the life you want to live, right? If you let them understand that, you know, I feel like a lot of parenting, you know, old school parenting is like that, like strict and, you know, listen, respect, you know, and all that needs to be there. It needs to play a big part in our children's life. But at the same time, I'm not saying you have to be their friend, but you have to be the inspiration to let them know that they can live life. Let them fail, you know, and let them fail and make mistakes, and not yelling at them when you're fixing these mistakes, but make it a conversation to let them understand that they're gonna fail. It's not you can't judge a kid. You can't judge a kid based on, you know, if a 35-year-old made that same mistake, and now you're holding them to that standard when it's like, no, they're 6, 7, 8. You know, I have 3 daughters, 11, 7, and 2, and it's like,
all different
each
stages
one
of
of
life
them,
too,
all
right?
different stages of life, all different personalities,
Yeah.
all different, strengths, and I've watched it with three different kids, and watching them grow. It's like at every age, I'm like, oh, this one did this at a certain age, or this one did that at a certain age,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's amazing to see that every kid is different, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't judge one for doing this or doing that. I'm like, you're your person, you're yourself, be yourself, and I want you to run with it. I want you, if that's the path that you're going, and that's the person that you are, I want you to own it, and I want you to own it for the right reasons, and I want you to be proud of it. And then as we go, of course, you gotta groom some things, and you gotta fix some stuff, and you're gonna stumble, but at the same time, letting them know that they could live their life. And I think that's a big part in the next part is seeing you go to these schools and share this message to kids, and yes, they could read the book, they could see these videos, they could see it all, but it's like when you're standing face to face with them and they see the superhero that your children see, it's one of those things I use with my kids too, is the superhero thing. Is like my kids think the world of me, and it's like, I'm like, man,
there's a lot of responsibility in that, right?
Boosts my ego. It boosts
Yeah.
my morale. It makes me makes me want to do what I'm doing so much more. And it's like, for you, I'd love to hear about when you're speaking at these schools, just what you get from it. And it's like, what's just give me a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
No, it's funny because I work in advertising and I work in sales, and I'm a sales leader in my company. And I'm used to talking to adults, speaking in front of rooms, and that's not a problem for me. And then when I booked my first school assembly and I had 400 kids,
amazing.
15 minutes before that, I was like, oh man, don't bomb, right? And then immediately when I got up there, I just transformed using some of that alter ego board of directors I have, and be like, all right, I'm going to bring out the Steve Clifford that I need for this.
I love that.
And it was the kids were so excited. They were high-fiving me, and I went in and I just spoke about the story. I spoke about why I'm doing this.
That's great.
Why I think it's needed today, and why it's relatable to them. All the different things that come up in their lives, I can help break down for them and try to explain to them. All right, in this situation, why is it important for grit? Why is it important for you to not give up when you try something new?
Yeah.
You're not going to be good at something when you try something new. No one is.
No one.
Right?
The best never were.
And if you give up, you'll never know what you could be.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
If you give up the first time you pick up a violin, you could be in the most talented orchestra in the world, but you gave up in the very first time.
Yep.
Right? You could be you could be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but if you give up the first time someone took control of you, you'll never know how good you could be. And I think parents often times will allow and enable their kids to quit. When they complain, the kids will be like, I'm not good at this, I don't want to do it anymore. Because
they allow that in their own lives. People allow it in their own lives.
So they let their kids quit, and then they don't push it. So what I did in this book particularly, it's called BYOG, Bring Your Own Grit. And this book was so good for that, because this one, I think this lesson hits the most in schools, is that I wanted the kids to understand you can't quit when you start something new. Yeah. And so what I have for this examples, and these are real life stories that happened in my family, where my daughter joined a judo gym, and she's been doing karate for about a year before this. Okay. And she's one of the leaders in the karate class. She does. She holds her hands upright. The sensei often calls her as an example. I'm like,
I see that on Instagram.
Look at her. Yeah, look at her. Look at the way she does. And she feels she has such a good self-esteem in that karate class. She joins judo, and she's the worst. She's the bottom. And it's more physical, and she's getting thrown around, tossed around. And I remember she was down after the second practice, and she's like, Daddy, I wish the girls in karate, I wish the girls in judo could see me in karate, because I'm a different person. Yeah. And I said, baby, I'm like, it's different. I'm like, you're doing something new. And so I thought of something that I never thought of before, and it just happened to me in the car, where I'm like, TJ, how good are you at drawing a rainbow? She's like, Daddy, I'm so good. I'm like, of course you are. I'm like, you've been drawing rainbows since you were 2 years old. Now, what if I gave you a piece of paper, another girl a piece of paper, and just a set of crayons? I said, who could draw me a better rainbow? No. But only difference is this other girl has never even seen a rainbow. She's never even seen crayons. Who could draw a better rainbow? Yeah. She said, well, me, Daddy. I was like, of course. Yeah. I was like, all right, now picture this. This is judo. You don't know how to draw your rainbow yet. You don't know where to put your hands. You don't know where to put your feet. And these girls do. Eventually, though, this girl's going to go outside. She's going to see a rainbow. She's going to figure out what crayons is.
Yeah.
And she's going to get better at that rainbow eventually, right? She may even be better if you stop drawing a rainbow.
I love that.
Right?
It's a great lesson.
So then after a month later, where she had a good practice, and she's like, unbeknownst to me, she's like, Daddy, I'm getting better at my rainbow.
I love that.
I'm like, oh my God, you remember that? That is so cool. So I made sure to put that in the book.
I love that. That's a great lesson because it's like they have to understand how to translate it for their own minds.
Yeah.
So it's like if you would keep trying to push the judo, something that she's not great at yet, and you keep pushing that on her, I don't think that would be as relatable to her to be able to understand how to overcome
for
that.
a 7-year-old mind, it's so difficult. It's
unbelievable.
Right?
That's great. That's a great lesson and something to hold in my pocket to think of. You know, when I'm with that. That's great.
For my son and for my daughter, when they learned how to ride a bike, the first thing I said to them was I made sure I didn't want to give them training wheels. I wanted them to fall. Right, so my wife and I were like, we're gonna make sure that they fall when they get up, right? So they had a balance. I know. So they had a balance bike. So I made sure they had that, so they were understand a little bit. And so when I gave them the real bike, I would hold the back of their seat and we would push them.
Yeah.
And they would squeal.
I'm gonna take some tips on this one.
Squeal and squeak, and they'd fall over, right? Yeah. Not some of they have some scrapes, nothing too bad.
Yeah.
But I said to them, and the cool thing about it is that I had this I had this bell on the bike, and I wouldn't let them ring the bell until they learned how to ride. And so for a 5-year-old boy who just got his brand new bike, and there's a big orange bell on it, and I'm like, you can't ring that bell. He's like, what do you mean I can't ring that bell? This is Dad, I don't even care about the bike. I just want to ring the bell. Like the bell is cool.
Yeah.
And my daughter the same thing. I'm like, you can't ring that bell.
I love it.
And they're like, I'm like, you have to earn the bell. When you ride that bike, when you can do circles and you can stop on your own, that's when you ring it. So I go to the church parking lot over at Notre Dame, and I would just hours and hours we would go out there, and they would fall and they'd fall and get back up, fall and get back up, and then we'd have some cry, we have some tears, we have some I don't want to learn anymore. Like we've had some of those moments, but I still wouldn't let them do it. Yeah. And then just like riding a bike, one day it clicks. Yeah. One day it clicks, and all of a sudden they're riding around. The smile's big. Yep. I'm like, yeah, you're doing it. Yeah. You're doing it, right? You're doing it. And all of a sudden they stop and they look at me and they're like, "Can I?" And I'm like, "Ring that bell." Yeah. And that bell became so big. Oh, that's great. It didn't become. If I let them ring the bell in the beginning, it would just be a bell.
Of course.
Now that bell is a symbol of their grit, of their 5-year-old heart, right? Yep. So like when they show their bike off to any family member or neighbor. Yep. The first thing they say is, "Do you know about this bell? Yeah. Do you know what I did for this bell?
Earned it."
And like so, it's little things like that. So like you had to go through like them falling, them crying, them complaining to get to the point where it's like, you know what, this is the bell, something that's different.
Having those lessons like that, it's like I'll tell you, because like I said, I was laughing. I was only laughing because it's been something that I struggled with to be able to teach my kids is the riding the bike thing and being able to overcome I think that maybe more of the failure for me of putting them through it. I'm not really sure what it is, but they've had some serious fear on falling and riding the bike, and we're still trying to work on it. But
have them read it. And
I'm gonna have them. I'm gonna have them go through these books, which I appreciate that you brought these down for my kids. And I'm telling you right now, we're gonna have some good feedback on them. It'll be cool for myself to read them. Again, I knew most of your story. I knew some of it about who you were. But I wanted to kind of leave this podcast in a way to really dive more deep into who you were and what really brought you to writing these books, and to see someone that's really trying to do exactly what I'm doing and just create the right message. Whatever people want to believe is the right message, and I know where our values stand. I know where I know where we stand as individuals. With our life and what we want to do. And so, I know you brought out these few books. I think the next question would be, where do you see yourself next in what you're doing with this brand, what you're doing with the business, the books? What is it? I'd love to hear, a bit more. No, I appreciate that. So I released all 4 books at the same time. And so my thought process was that because there's patches inside the back of the book and kids can earn them. Yes. My thought process was, who is Steve Clifford? He's not an author. He's not known for writing books, right? Yeah. So if someone actually likes one of the books,
and I have a second one coming and a third one coming and a
Yeah.
fourth one coming months later,
Yeah.
they're going to forget about me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right,
Okay.
let's release all 4 at the same time. And so if someone does like the book, they
Yep.
can go out and get the next one, they get the next patch, they
Got
can
it.
get the next patch. So I'm writing my 5th and 6th one now. So I'm really
Got
excited
it.
about that. The 5th
That's awesome.
one, the 5th is being illustrated now. The 5th one, that lesson is about fear is a choice and danger is real. So more is that you can have irrational fears. You can choose to be afraid. You can choose not to be afraid.
That's great.
And so
That's a
it's
good
all
one.
about how do I attack a problem. So I'm teaching my kids now what irrational fear is. And so if you don't want to eat mashed potatoes and you're like, is that are you really afraid of mashed potatoes? Is there a reason to be afraid, or is that just in your mind, right?
Exactly.
Are you afraid to jump off a diving board if you know how to swim? The lifeguard is there, mommy and daddy are there. Is that just a fear? Or is it dangerous? It's not dangerous. It's dangerous if you do it by yourself, alone in the dark when no one's there.
Yep.
That's dangerous.
Yep.
Right? But you're choosing to be afraid right now. And you can choose not to be afraid. And so, but that my next book is more about that. And
That's
so,
great.
and it's also channeling an alter ego too. So yeah, I think you're going to dig it.
That's cool. That's cool.
But I think more what I'm trying to do now is get in front of as many board of educations and schools that I can to get in and speak to more children.
Got it.
One of the biggest schools that have been really taken on to me is this Apogee program.
Okay.
This Apogee school, they started with one school in Texas, and it's now morphed into 50 schools. And they're actually making more. Like, I think it's going to be 75 to 80 schools in 2025. And it's a school that really focuses on sovereignty and getting outside and teaching kids more of a Socratic thought process. They're asking kids about, all right, how do you feel about this certain situation? How do you feel about this certain problem? How do you feel about taxes and government? And learning about different aspects of life that you're not getting in public schools.
Okay.
And when I bring these books to them, they've really taken to them, and they've really put them out and pushed them. So that's one thing. So shout out to Apogee Schools, because
That's awesome.
they've been really helpful for mine.
That's great. No, that's great. I love I love what you're doing, man. It's been a pleasure, bringing you on the show, being my first episode, having the opportunity to, again, bring someone who is in my life. We work out together. We've shared plenty of stories together. We've talked about, different things that we do with our children. Just the way of life. I think surrounding yourself in life with like-minded individuals and having the right people in your life is really what life is all about, right? You're not supposed to have all the answers. You're not supposed to do this alone. You're not supposed to, be the superhero that's fighting the world by himself and taking the world on his back alone. But it's bringing like-minded, great people together with the right mindset, and different things that you talked about today are going to be different things that I can translate over to my kids, because it's different ways to look at situations, and it's like, it's really cool to hear your perspective on life and what really brought you to, from your upbringing to writing a book, and it's a pleasure. And if you want to share anything else before we close out, I'd love to hear if you have anything else you would love to share with me. Just to, again, this is my opportunity to let you share everything about yourself, bringing great people to a platform to share great things. So, if there's anything else you would love to hear to share with our audience, that would be great.
JD, I appreciate that. So to really put a cap on this. So you've been inspiring to me. I've been watching your videos for a while and getting to know you, working out with you, doing workouts with you. Like the way you step out the mold and you lead by example, how you're getting up at 4 a.m, going for these long runs. Like the people in your gym, the people in the community, they see what you're doing, right? And I think I think it's really important for you to understand is that you're having impact on people. And I think it's so important. That's one of the reasons why when you reached out to me, I was like, hell yes, I want to do this, because you're someone who I see like values with.
Absolutely.
And so I think you should take like solace in the fact to know that like you are more of a humble guy, but you're making impact on people, and you're making impact on kids too. So I think it's really important that you understand that.
I love that, because that's the goal.
One of the things that I want to leave with is that while I was raised in a certain household, I knew that I wasn't unique. in the sense of like these lessons aren't unique just to me.
Yeah.
A lot of people have the same type of lessons.
Absolutely.
And when I was reading books to kids, I didn't see this from other books. I saw the only closest book I had was the Berenstain Bears. Right. I read a Berenstain Bears book, and if you remember the old school books, it was like the golden rule: treat people like you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Must have read that book 100 times to my kids because every other book there wasn't a lesson that I wanted to give to my kids. So that's when I knew I had to write these books.
No, that's great.
The one book I want to describe real quick while we have you is this one here. It's called No One Stands Taller Than You, and this is a bully book. This is about standing up for yourself, and you don't have to be the biggest kid in the room. You don't have to be the strongest kid in the room to stand up for yourself.
Absolutely.
And to what you tolerate from people and what you allow them to treat you. And it turns into a story where my daughter gets picked on, and it turns into there's this hyenas that pick on this rhinoceros. And these 3 hyenas keep coming back and picking out the rhinoceros. And the lion comes over and says, why are you letting these hyenas pick on you? You're this big, strong rhinoceros. You're braver than you believe. You're stronger than you think. And you're the whole support of the whole jungle. And the rhino's just like, I don't know, she's just a nice little rhino. The next day, bully clockwork, hyenas come back, right? And this time, the elephant comes over and says, why are you letting you do this? You're braver than you believe, stronger than you think. Third day, even the little honey badger comes around and scares away the hyenas, right? It's like, what are you doing? You're the rhinoceros. Eventually, the rhinoceros believes in himself and stands up for himself and knocks the hyenas out, right? And says, I'm the big bad rhinoceros. Like, you can't treat me this way. And I think a lot of kids need to understand that. And I think that happened. It happened with my daughter over the summer, where she was in soccer camp, and there were these boys picking on her for some reason, and it was the first time she ever felt this way, and she came to me and said, it was the last day of the week camp, and she said, my ankle hurts, I don't want to go. And I was like, your ankle hurts?
Making excuses.
Yeah, she making up an injury, and it's not like her too. She's pretty tough. And I was like, was something else going on? And she's like, well, yeah, there's these like the older boys that they're picking on me, and they're kicking my ball away, and they're telling me I'm no good. And I was like, what? I'm like, that's, and then she started crying. Then all of a sudden tears started coming out. And I was like, oh my God. And you can imagine the boiling of blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 3 older boys are picking on my little girl. That's messed up.
Yep.
And she's like, please don't make me go. Please don't make me go. And I was like, oh my God. And in this moment, I stepped out of my body a little bit, and I saw myself being like, this is what parents have to go through. This is horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
figuring it out on the go.
I want to allow you not to go. I want to protect you and not make you go. But then I'm like, if I do that, I'm not allowing you to figure it out yourself, to stand up for yourself. Now, 3 against 1, 3 older boys, so I was aware of that. But I also realized that like there wasn't any physicalness, there wasn't any harm that I was pushing her back into. Yeah. So it was so funny because I said, I'm like, remember the book, Taylor? The 3 hyenas? These are the 3 boys. Yeah. You're the rhino.
That's great.
They don't know you how you are in judo. No. They don't know how you jumped off this cliff when we were in Tennessee. They don't know all the cool, tough things you do. They just see this little girl. Yep. I'm like, you got to show them. I'm going to go in with you. I'm going to be there with you. And if you do this, you can get the patch. And that was the one patch she was missing, because it's an opportunity to, like, when you get bullied. Yeah, yeah. She's like, I can get the patch if I go. I was like, yeah. If you go, you stand up for yourself. And so, like bully clockwork, they came back, and she was just like, no, this is my ball. You're not doing this. And she ended up doing it. JD, we drove home that day. She was so fired up.
I love that.
She was pumped. She said, Daddy, blast the music. Yeah. She was so excited because now I knew, I'm like, all right, the next time she gets bullied again, she'll have this historical data in her mind. Absolutely. I can do it. I can do it. And if I let her walk away, because she said to me while she was crying, she goes, I'll go next time. Next time I'm bullied, I'll go. And I'm like, no, you won't.
Yeah, I think there's so many ways that you could have handled that situation. There could have been maybe some anger thrown in there, like getting angry that like boys were doing that to your daughter, and you could have taken like an old school approach to like how you could have handled that situation, and to hear that is like those are examples and ways that like people need to hear that there's other ways to talk to your kids and cope and get through situations. And I love that you took that approach, because now your daughter not only is able to overcome the bullying situation, but again, it shows her to stand up for herself, have confidence. Yeah. It builds such character for her too. So thank you so much, dude. I love that. Thank you so much for being on the show.
I appreciate it,
guys, make sure all the accounts, make sure you guys are following, make sure you're subscribing down at It's Me Skutch on YouTube. I have a couple different accounts on Instagram and TikTok. Skutch Radio, It's Me Skutch. The host, JD Skutch. It's important, guys. I'm going to be doing a giveaway. All right. Anyone that follows this and subscribes to the accounts mentioned here today, I'm going to be giving and releasing in about a week or two our first giveaway. So it's important to stay in tuned and connecting with the messages that are going to be coming over the next couple months. And along with that, I'd like to challenge the listeners and the audience to going out and doing something great themselves. So listening to this and hearing inspiring stories is great, but every single day, if you could do something great, you can make and change and impact the community and even the world and make a difference for everybody. So challenge yourself and reach out. Tag me in people who are doing great things. Share great things you're doing. I want to hear from people. I want to be able to share more stories on this platform. So for one last time before we close out, do something great today.
If you could follow at Forgotten Wisdom Books, and if you're interested in purchasing these books, ForgottenWisdomBooks.com.
Boom. Love it.
Thanks, bro. It was great.
Got it, bro.